Hello, Molly here, your host for the Say It Skillfully podcast, and grateful to be speaking with leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, elite athletes, artists, and professionals like you who open up about what's been hard, defining moments and learnings and finding their true north and succeeding on their terms. I am exuberant for today's chat. My guest is a leader in fashion, a field many of us might consider a dream, and this designer's career ascent may sound just like that to you. After graduating from the the Rhode Island School of Design, known as RISD, he started at the storied Marc Jacobs in New York City and rapidly went on to co-launch New York-based brand Cloak, and then his very own namesake collection. He's worked and lived on many continents and received many awards, including the Echo Domani Fashion Foundation Award and Vogue Grant in the early 2000s, to the GQ Best New Menswear Designer Award in 2009. In 2017, he was nominated for the biggest prize in American fashion, the Designer of the Year Award by the CDFA, the Council of Fashion Designers of America, recognizing him as a leader of the spirit of American fashion. I could go on and on. More recently, he's collaborated with cool brands including Common Projects, Garrett Late, and Lululemon. And last year, Rag & Bone appointed him head of menswear design. Meet my amazing friend and fellow tennis enthusiast, Robert Geller. Robbie, welcome to Say It Skillfully.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for that nice introduction. Really looking forward to this talk.
Yeah, you have made a huge impact, my friend, and we want listeners to know that our tennis enthusiasm is literally how we met. And I just bit the bullet and did one of my bucket list items to go to the Rafa Nadal Tennis Academy in Mallorca. And lo and behold, I meet Robbie and his friends and a whole group of folks really from around the globe. And I was telling Robbie before we started, I was sitting there and, I went by myself, so you don't really know anybody. I'm sitting on the deck and they were on the stadium court. And he and his friend are going back and forth. I'm like, well, those are pretty nice balls. And then they had a friend they were rotating in. And it was so funny because I had this impression of you from afar, tennis stud. And then when I first met you, just not that I was shocked, but you're just warm and your openness, and it helped me feel really open. So I think I was open. And so it was really like, I felt very like this from the moment I met you.
I did the same. I mean, during the orientation, which was after that day when you saw me, I saw you and you were chatting to people. I was like, I want to talk to her. And I came over and it was just easy. I think from the first second, I think you're super open to talk to and very easy to talk to. And I was excited to meet people and to be there. And I think everybody was just so happy. It was exactly like you said, like a bucket list, just something everybody that loves tennis dreams of doing one day. And so to be there, and it was the morning before it all started, and it was just a great way to meet. And then, I think it was just, there were so many nice people there. We really found a great group of friends, and what a wonderful time.
Yeah. Tennis, I've said, I started as an adult. I didn't have, we were gymnasts as kids, so a decent, body coordination. And I have sold so many folks. My tennis, especially earlier in life, really helped ground me, because in tennis, if you don't problem solve and keep your emotions and kind of figure out yourself in the match, you just hand the racket to the opponent and just get off the court, right?
Yeah.
So it really, it's sort of this just very humbling, like, are you gonna get it together, or are you just gonna implode, and it really helped me as a young person.
It's definitely the sport that's the most in your head. Like that's you're really constantly battling with yourself. And I think that you learn some amazing lessons there that apply to your life and your work and everything. Because I don't know exactly what it is about tennis. It's just you really often in a match find your mind sort of blocking yourself. Like, I don't know exactly what it is or where it comes. It's doubts and things. I think because it's so complicated, you're doing so many things. As soon as your mind gets involved, it throws you off. And so there's so much of it is about sort of calming your mind, keeping yourself positive, and all of these things, which are really great lessons.
Yeah, it's we could go on and on about tennis. So I have to say, and I was telling folks, you see this person, good forehand, backhand. Like, I knew Robbie through his tennis, and then I stalked you a little bit. And, it's amazing what you've done in your life. So I'm so grateful you're willing to share with us. But one of the pieces described you as effortlessly cosmopolitan in international times, which I just thought was like such a tribute, right? You're so beautiful, and you
That's
are
funny.
absolutely this global citizen, So, you know, let's start with folks hearing about your epic journey around the world, how you grew up, how
Yeah.
you become who you are doing what you do.
Okay. I will start at the beginning because that's sort of where the journey began. Was in Hamburg, Germany. That's where I was born. I have two German parents. Um, but then when I was 8, we moved from Hamburg to Frankfurt because of my sort of parent situation. And then shortly after, when I was 10, I moved to Los Angeles. My stepdad was went there to study film at USC. So that was a big change for me to. This was like 1986. So you can imagine LA in 1986, mid 80s. Like I arrived, and I think the first day we're driving, suddenly I saw like Eddie Murphy in a Porsche. And I was like, this is so cool. I remember so well my mom and my stepdad, like, a serious meeting. We're thinking about moving to LA. What do you guys think? I was like, okay, let's go. When are we going? Because you just, I knew it from the movies. It's like all these movies about surfing and skateboarding, all in LA. So I was super excited. I was like, I'm going to skateboard to school. Okay, let's go tomorrow. I didn't speak any English at that point. So we're like, okay, we went. Um, and I was sort of, that first couple of days in school, I didn't understand anything. Uh, but then, like 5 months later, it's totally fluent. You're just thrown into it. And I remember just sort of sitting there and trying to understand, and then a little bit you could understand something. We're also taking lessons after school, but really after 6 months, totally fluent. Kids are like this. So, and then we after 3 years we moved back to Germany. I went to international school. My parents wanted me to keep speaking English. So basically, since I was 10, English has been, along with German, sort of equal in my life. So I always felt very comfortable with English. And then when graduated from high school, okay, let me take you back a little bit. My dad, he's a photographer. So he was also always sort of traveling the world, but back in Hamburg, he had a photo studio. And so spent a lot of time growing up there. And so when I was, whatever, 12 or 13, started thinking about what I might want to do with my life. I was like, I want to be a photographer like my dad. I thought it was so cool. I loved the atmosphere of the studio, models and music and stylists. And like, I just kind of had a thing for that already. I loved it. So that's what I imagined. And then so when, um, when I graduated from high school, I spent 1 year in Paris and then 1 year in Stuttgart in Germany working for photographers, assisting. So that was the path. That's what I thought I wanted to do. Um, but I also really wanted to study. Um, I felt like I wanted that to be part of my life, and so I had always planned that when I was ready and I had earned some money. Of course, I got some help from my parents too, because RISD is expensive, but I was able to contribute. I went to RISD, but I applied as a photography student. And then this was a really big sort of important part of my life. That first year at RISD, the foundation year, you just do a ton of drawing, you do a ton of sculpture. It's built on the Bauhaus idea, and the Bauhaus idea believes that if you're an architect, you also need to learn how to design the clothes for the space you're creating and be able to paint the pictures that should be inside. So it's like a holistic. You develop an aesthetic, and then you learn the tools of how to create different sort of genres of art or whatever, different. And so we really had a lot of time learning a lot of different things, from sculpture to architecture to all these things. And suddenly my horizons really expanded from photography. I was really on the path to being a fashion photographer, always loving this idea of fashion and being interested in it. And so I took some courses in fashion design. And then when it was time to choose, I was really in doubt. It's like, I've been doing this photography thing for a long time. It's not that much more I can learn technically. Um, I could use the next 3 years to just sort of build my aesthetic, my point of view within photography, or try something completely new. And I was just more excited about trying something completely new. And so I just kind of dove in head first. I changed my major to fashion design. And as you know, if you know RISD is a school where it's extremely difficult to get into, and you really have to like. What I'm trying to say is like as I was for photography, everybody who went into fashion design had been since they were 12 or whatever, even younger, probably making clothes and sewing clothes. So I started off at the way back of the pack when I got there. But I think one big advantage was that I was also a little bit older. You know, since I'd taken the time, those 2 years to work, I really appreciated being there. I really like. I got there. Said I understood that when you get to the workplace, what the only thing that matters is what you contribute. Like, what do you know how to do, and how can you make the place where you're working function better? And so I was like, I'm so lucky to be able to go to a place for 4 years to just get better at things and learn things. So I was so happy to be there and completely dedicated myself to the school. And so I really spent those 3 years catching up and working hard and the proof was that by the last year when the way that RISD a year is set up, you have the first semester and then you have winter session, which is 6 weeks, and then you have the second semester. And during that winter session, you can either take a course in, if you're studying photography, you can do it in architecture. If you're studying painting, you can do it in ID or whatever. So it's to get you exposed to other things. But in the last year, you're supposed to do an internship. And so everybody wanted to go to New York and do an internship. And the coolest designer by far at that time was Marc Jacobs. So everybody, literally, I think every single student out of their 3 designers that they chose, they put Marc Jacobs. Me too, because I wanted to go there. And so the faculty, the teachers, they could only choose 2 because Marc Jacobs said, we will interview your 2 best, basically. And so I was chosen as one of the 2, which means that I had worked my way from really being behind to sort of the top of the pack. So that was amazing. And then I went to New York and I interviewed with Marc Jacobs and interviewed with Donna Karan. And Donna Karan was at that point already a very large company. I mean, much bigger than they are now, but sort of at their peak. And so I went and the HR greeted me and I walked down the corridor with like 10 doors that all looked the same. And I think they were all interviewing interns. I don't know, it just felt like this machine. I went in, I showed my portfolio. They were very enthusiastic about it. And so I felt very good when I left. And then I went to Marc Jacobs and it was much more sort of nerve-wracking. It was just a super cool studio. It was this very fierce, beautiful woman, somewhere in between, young girl, greeting you at the beginning and kind of looking you up and down. So I had my, I was young, and I had my portfolio. And so I kind of sat in the corner waiting. And then this girl, Natalia, comes out. Big red hair, beautiful, and talking to her. She's super nice. We get along. She's like, hang on a second. And she goes and she brings somebody else, sits down, and we talk. And then goes and brings somebody else, which is a good sign. It's kind of like, okay, I'm getting past these sort of stages. But I left and I really didn't know where this was going. So anyway, I went back home and this was on Friday. And then on Monday morning, Donna Karan calls and said, okay, we want to offer you the internship. I said, I'm super honored. Love it. Very thankful. Is there any chance you could wait until Friday, 5 p.m.? And then I'll confirm. They're like, we don't usually do this, but we'll make an exception. Okay. So I was like, okay, Marc Jacobs, come on. Let's see. And it was literally, and it sounds like a movie or it's made up. It was really a Friday afternoon. I was at a fabric store getting something for school. I get into my car. It's like 5 to 5, picking up my phone, and the phone rings. I swear it's exactly how it was. And it was Natalia. And she asked me if I wanted the internship, and I said yes. So the impact of that was incredible because I went to Marc Jacobs. Natalia, who was there, she's still one of my best friends. She was one of what's it called? Not best men, but for women, the
Yeah, maid of
maiden of
bridesmaids.
honor.
Maid of
Yeah, that was
honor, maid of bridesmaids.
because my boss, besides her, was Anna, who's now my wife. So I met her there, and then Richard Chai, he was the creative director under Mark at that point. Um, he's one of my very best friends. He made the dress for Anna for a wedding. Like it just completely changed my life. My partner for my first business, Cloak, was a pattern maker at Marc Jacobs. I mean, it was really such a like life changing moment. You know that those like few minutes. So uh, amazing, amazing. And then being at Marc Jacobs was just like completely eye opening. You know, it was in New York, so cool. We worked such long hours. You know, sometimes it's like 6 p.m. We're like, oh, halfway through the day, guys. You know, like we literally stay until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
But you know, exciting. Getting ready for a show, one of probably the biggest show in New York at the time. And just learning so much. I mean, in school, you learn how to draw, you learn how to sew, you learn how to kind of make clothes, but you don't learn how the industry works. You don't learn the whole rhythm of like, you know, your design time for the samples to come in, for the show, then the sales, then thinking about production and all of these things that sort of, you know, the whole calendar continuously going. Um, but I learned a ton at that point, you
Uh,
know.
so that's just so, I mean, just the fact that it's so vivid to you still just really reinforces just how like, whoa, that all was. And
Yeah.
so I get the digging in, you know, coming to America and not speaking a lick of English and being fluent 5, 6 months later. So would you say like this is this just like a natural self-confidence? Did your parents imbue that in you? Like moments of self-doubt for Robbie, really? I mean, how would you?
I was not a confident. I mean, I was confident once I felt comfortable, but I was extremely shy all the way. I think probably when I went to college, I was sort of I had learned my tools and how to kind of I guess mask it at least in the beginning. But I was so shy. You know, I remember when we moved back from LA and I went to the international school in Frankfurt. For the first 2 weeks, I would not say anything. I would sit at the table with people. I just wouldn't say anything. Like I wouldn't, and people were like, "How come you don't ever say anything?" I was like, "I'm just listening." You know, like I don't. In my head, I was like, I could say this now, but let me wait. You know, it's just sort of weird. Not weird, just sort of. I don't know. I'd always been like this. You know, um, but I think it's something that helped me also understand things. You know, when you're listening more than you're talking, it's usually a good thing because you're learning and you're actually hearing things from other people. So um, I think it was the fact that, you know, I moved schools, we moved cities, always being the new guy. After a while, you're like, okay, I can be the new guy.
Yeah.
I know how to deal with it. And so when you met me, I think that was all part of that learning, lifelong learning of how to I don't know, maybe just see the positive of like a new conversation, and I think it's also building confidence. You know, it is building confidence that through your life you've managed to be the new guy, you've accomplished things in your life, and then you just feel more confident to start a conversation with somebody. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's a learn. It wasn't like I wasn't born super confident, like not at all.
Yeah.
Opposite,
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah, I appreciate your sharing that. And for all the listeners around the world, and coming from an introvert myself, and I really relate to the like painfully shy. Like
Yeah,
she
yeah.
seems very smart, but she never says anything. You know, like we
Yeah.
think that there's some intelligence in there, but we would never really be able to confirm it. Um,
I didn't even seem smart. I was just quiet.
I don't know about that. So I have to admit, Robbie, to being a wannabe creative, like just hearing, like in another life, not that I could be, I would be an architect, like for sure, right? Designing like function and form, but with the aesthetic. So if you are objective about kind of what you think you rock at, like what makes for a great designer in your eyes, what why do you think you have have what's been about you that's helped you be so successful?
I think it's to be a great designer, there's different aspects of it. Like a good example is my first business, Cloak. Um, my partner came from pattern making, and that's the people that really create the paper that then you cut the cloth from, that creates the shapes and all the details and things like that. That was his strength, and I think still to this day he's probably one of the best in the world at creating new pockets, new sort of functional closures, all of this sort of 3D. That's not my strength. I've learned to get better at it. My strength is overall image, like the the way to put together colors, the way to put together pieces of clothing to create an outfit, the way to create a series of outfits for a lookbook to create a whole feel for a brand. Then how do we photograph it? How do we make it all look like the overall direction of a brand, and being able to make that really attractive? I think that's probably, I would say, my biggest strength. I mean, I sketch and I create new shapes and all of that as well. But if you're going to put down to sort of what I think sets me apart from others, it's the bigger vision, the the textures and the colors and the shapes, and then putting it all together. I think that's sort of my strength.
Did that was the photography the head start in being able to? It's like how you see, right? I always figured with photographers is that ability to see what others aren't seeing.
Totally, and that's funny because that's I was just thinking about that because that's so much what photography is, but it's also so much what drawing is. And that was really because it was when I started to see or to look at things differently that I got really good at drawing. It's really, you have to slow yourself down and you have to really focus to look, what does that shape look like? Where does the light hit? Where does those tones come in? Like, and that is all related. It's related to the photography. It's related to design. When you see things, something that you like, why do you like it? Why does that outfit look good? Why does that balance good? Why does that jacket have a really nice proportion? What is it about that pocket that you really like? And then it's really about looking and seeing and understanding what it is, so that then you can mix all those things together that you've seen, that you've thought about, and create it and create something new.
That's so cool. So I'm kind of wondering if you have a bit of a curse since you are schooled in design and fashion and not I mean not to judge good, bad, right, and wrong, but I could imagine when you see some things you're like, "Ooh, ouch." So do you just sort of numb away when you see things that are like, "Oh my God, what's happening there?" I'm wondering how that lands for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I do is super specific, and I realize it's very like, I mean, rag and bone. It's commercial to a certain extent, but it's definitely um, a, a brand that sits within the world of people who are into menswear or women's wear on the women's side. So when you see things around outfits and things like that, I mean, of course, not everybody cares about clothing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that really, or they care about it just for comfort, or they care about, I don't know. This sort of, not everybody cares that much about really looking put together or looking great. So I don't judge it too much, but I do love when I see a really cool outfit. It really makes me happy. You know.
Yeah. How talk us through, because I think these, you see runways, you're like, no one would ever wear that. But talk to us about like the inspiration, how you do what you do. How do you decide? Because I don't know, is it a job? Okay, Robbie, we need a new collection for spring. Go.
It's always been like that. I mean, you get people always say, how do you do it? And you have to come up with something new. And like, um, it's just what I do, right? So it's like, how does a director make a movie? I have no idea. How does a guy that writes songs write a song? I'd have no idea. You know, it just seems so crazy to me. You have this tune in your head, and then you play it, and then you write a lyric and put like, I don't know. I could never. I don't think I could ever do that. I just don't have the talent. But when it comes to creating a collection, to find inspiration, it's just always there, you know, because you're constantly collecting. And I'm lucky enough in my life that I travel quite a lot, and so I see different things. I see different kinds of influences, and often see some. Oh, that looks beautiful. That's a really great color. Oh, look at the texture of this. And you're constantly collecting. So when it's time to do the new collection, it's like, okay, right. There's a lot that I want to do. There's a lot that I want to sort of talk about, and then I bring that to the team, and then the team also takes that and goes in their own way. You know, if we say, for instance, uh, early '80s sort of new wave post punk music, let's go. You know, and then we go and we collect images, we collect songs, we create a world that then is our world, and within that we design. It's not really creating a costume from that time. It's just sort of, what are the inspirations? What is it about that music that's so cool? What was it about the way that the people moved and danced, and the way they just took clothes out of their dad's closet and made it their own with pins and kind of reset, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
totally.
it just creates, you're trying at the very beginning to create uh, a world that we can all see ourselves in, from the colors to the textures to the sounds and then within that we create a collection that then feels right for our customer, but has the atmosphere from that. And then, you also work with the merchandising team, and they say, okay, well, we need, whatever, 3 jackets and 5 coats, and so you're going through that, and then you apply all of these things to the sort of skeleton that you have,
Yeah.
and you build a collection. It's like, um, there's sort of a sense of to it all, especially if you've been doing it for a long time. Then you make the clothes. Then if you put on a show, you take these clothes and you want to show them in the most exciting way, and really make them look good. And you're trying to create something that when people say, "Wow, this is amazing! I love these clothes. I love the overall look. I want to look like this." And if you can do that at a price where people can afford it, then I think you can have success.
It's crazy. So clearly, the communication, the teamwork, the organicness within the team is so key. And, when it's a smaller team, it's much more intimate. You just got plunked into this new role. So just talk to us about how you create that sense. I mean, you're so open, it's not surprising to me, but, people have to feel free and they could maybe come up with things that aren't perfect or right. So, talk about how you create that space.
Yeah, I mean, my first conversation with the team was like, okay, I'm here to create space for us to have room for some magic, and I think that was really important, because often when you're in a company that's reached a certain size and things, can become a little bit formulaic and
Mhm.
say, okay, well, this did really well last season and the season before, we have to have this again, and that's part of it. I accept that. That's totally fine. You need to have the bread and butter. It's what keeps the engine going, but we also want to make sure that we have room for some magic, for the design team to make something really fun, really cool, and that when you come into the store, you see something that's very special and beautiful, and that I think is important for every brand to have, and sometimes gets forgotten. And so, I mean, that's an easy way to make myself more popular with the design team, and I think that's how it started. And of course, it's always weird when somebody new comes in, and everyone's like, "What's he gonna do? What's he like?" And for me too, because after Mark Jacobs, I left, and I always had my own brand. It was me with my team that I picked and put together, and grew very sort of organically. And this is now me kind of being plumped into a situation that was already there. And I mean, they're amazing. They're a really great team, and everybody was kind of pulling in the right direction. So I feel like it was kind of very smooth, just a very exciting time to be at this brand that I've loved, and I feel super fortunate. I think it's just a match. But in terms of like working with the team is something that I'm also learning. It's that my team at the biggest was like 5 or 6 people. So I there's a lot of terms where I'm like, I don't even know what that means. What's MAPP? You're like, oh, okay, we have these meetings, and they're like, I don't know what that means. They're like, you don't know what that means? Like, no, I don't know what that means. I've never, I don't know, because I've been doing it for so long, but I've just never. These are more like corporate terms, But
Totally.
I'm learning, and I love that at my age. I'm learning a lot of new things and learning how to do it. And sometimes it's okay just to be like, oh, no, I don't know how to. I don't know what that means. Just explain it to me, please. And
Yeah.
now they all know, and they're very very friendly. But definitely, yeah, you have to be open to admitting that there's things that maybe you don't know how to do, even though you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, for all of our listeners, Robbie's just modeling, like we're all real and I'm vulnerable because I don't know what this acronym is and it's okay. And I just think that's what sustains people, like they know you're the boss and he's real. And it just, I think it's, it seems like it seems maybe like a trivial thing, but even I appreciate you saying it's a little weird. Like I'm supposed to be the big guy, kind of know everything. And I'm like, I don't know, what is MAPP? It's just,
Yeah. Totally. Now I know.
yeah, no, that's crazy. Can you, before we get to family, because that's such a big thing, just take us through? I'm in awe of you, because there's a lot of business in fashion, and you can go big and small, and maybe just a quick runway when you went off on your own, because that's, I mean, people dream about having a brand after their own name, right? And like you actually did it. So, just what was that like, and the learnings, and would be
I mean,
really.
I don't know. I don't want to say I got lucky because it's not totally true. But after I had started Cloak with my business partner, he came from pattern making, I came from design, but we were both basically designing the collection, and neither of us had any business experience. So we ran off. We made this really cool collection. I think first collection already won us an award that gave us, I don't know, I think that's like $30,000. That let us have a show. So we had a show. Lots of people came to our show. Then we sold to really cool stores. Then we won another award. We did another show. There was lines around the building. Like it just we became super culty, and it became this thing very, very quickly. I always thought, if we have a brand, and maybe after 10 years, a magazine will come and maybe write about us. But no, I mean, it was literally like after that first season, from whatever W magazine, GQ, The Face was doing big stories about it because New York didn't have a lot of menswear at that time. What we were doing was just so very different. People thought it was really cool, and so quite early on, we got a big reputation, but we didn't know how to turn that into financial success. We kept growing every season. Say, okay, next season if we sell 800,000, we're going to break even, and then we'd sell like 1,000,000, and still we wouldn't break even because we didn't. I gotta tell you, it's so complicated. The production of fashion, the amount of products that you're making, completely new, every 6 months, is insane. So imagine like a jacket has probably like 5 or 6 different fabrics that you have to combine. You have the buttons, you have the tags, you have the thing, and so each thing that you buy, I don't want to get too much into it, but let's just say about fabric, you have to buy the fabric before the orders come in because it takes so much time to make. So basically, when you're ordering the fabrics, you have to estimate how much you're going to sell. But let's say you buy 2 rolls, 100 yards, but then you only sell 10 jackets. So now you have whatever roll and a half left over, which you have paid for, but then your margin is minus, right? Because you have, so it's just super complicated to do that right. So we didn't manage to do it, to be honest. And Alexander was a bit older. He really believed in this. I was at that point 26, 27. This was after like 2.5 years, super young, and I wasn't ready to take a huge loan from a bank. We borrowed some money from our friends and family and to kind of keep it going in the beginning. Just wasn't. I couldn't sleep at night. Like it was just too much for me. So I left there, and then it was, I think, less than a year later that I was approached by a Japanese production company who had loved the brand clothes, and they said, we want to support you to do your own brand. And basically the way it was set up was that they paid for all the production, they handled all the production, they handled all the financing. Was like a worldwide licensing agreement. The name was still mine, but I would get a percentage of the overall sales, basically as as a payout or as a salary. So I was like, yes, please. I mean, it's a dream, really a dream, because all the things that I was not good at, they took care of, and they really let me do. They let me do the design. They let me do the PR. They let me do all the marketing and stuff. So I mean, the combination was just really, really good. And the Japanese, I mean, the quality is impeccable. The fabrics are so beautiful. And so, I mean, I spent a lot of time in Japan, that for like 14 years. You know? Yeah. Not quite 12 years, but amazing. And that was really the foundation to, whatever success I had during those years, because it's, it's just so incredibly difficult to do it without the support of a company like that, you know. Most of the designers that have really gone somewhere, they've had a partner that takes care of the business. I had it with my partner was a company. Normally, it's like a guy, you know, it's like some guy that becomes CEO and kind of takes care of it. So I never had that like long term partner, but it was one company and then switched to another company, but I had the support, which was fantastic, you know, and uh, it was not always easy. You know, we had some. I'll tell you one more story, because this is really a little bit. This is really about the struggle. You know, I this was the first company that supported me, and I had within the media team there was a Japanese stylist he was a stylist for the collection, but he also was the main sort of connection to the company in Japan, so it was communication and things. And then we had a Japanese graphic designer who was a good friend of mine, who that's how they reached me in the first place, was through him, and he was taking care of all of the graphics for everything, website design, all of this stuff. So anyway, it was kind of a threesome, and I come to the office in the morning. This had been after like payments were a little bit delayed already. It felt like something was off, and we had had our show. Come into the office next morning. We had packed up the collection. We were sending it back to Japan to do the sales there, because we would do the sales in New York, and then we would send it to Japan to do the sales over there for the Asian market. And these two guys, Yuji and Rio, were waiting for me in the office, and they're like, "Listen, the president of the company has just been arrested. All assets are frozen. They locked off the office, and we don't really know what to do." And it was like, I think for like half an hour, we're like just like miserable, and then we're like, okay. Well, we had been talking to this one company because the payments were late already. Why don't we call them, see if they want to? This is a company that wasn't even set up yet. They were like, we love the brand. We love the brand. We were setting up the similar situation as the company that you were with before. We'd love to when it comes out work. And so we talked to them and said, are you guys willing to do this? We could switch over to you tomorrow. And they're like, yes. So they set up their company. Our friends at the old company were at night stealing into the factory to get all the information, fabric information, all the patterns to send to us. We'd send it to the new company. It was literally for, I think, for like 2 months we didn't sleep. And if we had sent that collection that was packed up the day before, my business would be over. It would have been done because we wouldn't have had the samples. It would have gone to the company, would have gone to the reason that the guy was arrested really bad was after remember the earthquake and then the Fukushima explosion. He had a business advisor. Him and like three other businesses had the same business advisor that advised them to claim more damages to their factories in the area than they actually had. So all three of them were arrested in Japan. That was just like, I mean, I guess anywhere, but especially in Japan, it was just so dishonorable. And so, um, I mean, they took everything in that company. So in in the end, we're so lucky to get we transferred to this new company, and they, you know, we delivered that collection to not one store where it was more than like a week and a half late. It was such a miracle. Like it's this business. If you miss one season, you're done. Like forget it. They put somebody else in your place. So it was really stressful,
Oh my God.
but it was yeah, one of those situations where you just work through it and you try to find solutions. And like after that half an hour of misery, we were like, okay, let's do it. Let's go. We knew that we could do it. Like we felt like this company was uh, had a future, and so we all worked really hard to get through it.
Wow, that could be a movie. That's crazy.
Yeah, totally crazy. Totally
That
crazy.
is
Totally
amazing. Robbie, segue to the love of your life, Anna, and the kids. And I know that this is a real source of pride for you because, but I say to people, you can have it all. You can't necessarily have it all at the same time, but I'm so in awe of you of how you really seem to navigate all these pieces of life to be in sync.
Yeah, I mean, it's just always been a huge priority of mine. One of the things that Marc Jacobs also that I I learned was like I don't want that life. Like I don't want that life for forever. I liked it for the time I was there. I was
Mhm.
young and I was like dedicated, but I don't want to have employees. I don't want to have whatever 65-year-old sample makers that need to go home at 4 o'clock in the morning and come back at 8. Yeah, like I don't want to do that to anybody.
Yeah.
I know that if I do things right, if I stay organized in the way that I am, I can make it happen without this craziness. And I think with in those so it's, yeah, 12 years that I had my brand, I think I did maybe like 4 or 5 all-nighters. That's it. Like,
Mhm.
and that's crazy in the fashion industry. And so that was always really important for me, for my team, that we had a balance. Often we would go for lunch, we go to a restaurant in Tribeca and sit in the sun and really enjoy. Like I think for me that was always really important. It's the balance of my team, but also with my family. I bring my first daughter Luna into the office. I shared my office with my wife because she had a showroom. So just to quickly explain, a showroom is a place where the stores come to look at several collections. So my wife would, let's say she had like 25 collections, mine being one of them. And then Barney's would come and they would look at my collection, but because there's other collections, they'd also look at the other collections and then place their orders there. And then the designers produce it and it goes to the stores. But she has that, so it really worked really well together. And so it was easy for us also say, okay, let's bring our daughter when she was little into the office, and she would just sit at the table with us. We're sketching our clothes, and she's drawing whatever little bunnies and things. But she was just part of the gang until she went to kindergarten or whatever. Um, by keeping that all together and going for lunch with my wife and getting there in the morning after we dropped off the kids, we'd walk whatever through downtown New York. Our office was in Tribeca. The kids went to school in the South Street Seaport. So I mean, trying to make it as nice as possible, right? Because this job can be a grind, and if you let it take over your life, it's very dangerous. I mean, you can see with a lot of designers that have taken their lives and things because the pressure is quite high. And if you let it become everything in your life, when it doesn't go well, then there's nothing else. Then you're lost. I never wanted to have that. Fashion to me, I fell in love with fashion because I loved the idea of creating clothes, of creating an image, the sort of I love the Belgian designers because they were just, it wasn't about luxury. It wasn't about the golden bag at the Côte d'Azur. It was like about the really cool youth just looking amazing, and mu- music and fashion together and all these things. Like that's what I really loved. And so I had a lot of friends in fashion, but it wasn't my world like that. It wasn't my life. My life was my family. It was my office family, people that I worked with. That truly, everybody always says that. Like all the people that work for you are still in your life. You know, it's because we really became great friends. Like probably 90% of the people I'm still in contact with, and whenever I'm in New York, we go out for dinners and things, and became really good friends because we had a great time together. And that's maybe the biggest success that I've had in my career is these relationships that I've built over the years.
Yeah, that's a big bravo. So, but listen, working with family and your wife, I can imagine if there are these, it's tough, not a lot of people can do that. So, how did you and Anna navigate that? Because that's very special.
Because we didn't work on the same, we worked in the same world, and my collection was sold by her company, but she didn't really get involved in my design
Mm.
or my business in that way. Now she's also my manager, so she does all the negotiating for contracts and stuff like that, which she's just amazing at, much better than me. And so we work together, but we don't work. I think the key is not to work on the exactly the same thing. Big problem also with Cloak at the time was that we were both designers. We're designing a collection. Like I like this button, and he'd be like, "Oh, but I like this button." And then you're like, "How do we solve this?" It just becomes super. First time you're like, "Oh no, we'll take yours," and the second he's like, "Oh, I'll take yours." But after like 3 years, you're like, "Ah, let me just use this button. I think it's much better." And you just get annoyed. So I think any kind of partnerships, whether it's with work or with family, you gotta have your space. Like this is I own this space. This is mine, and it was my brand and my design. And then she owned the sales part, and that was hers. And so I think that was really why it could work. It's like
Yeah.
we weren't on top of each other in that way, and kind of like having to share a decision.
Yeah.
I mean, we do with our kids, but that's a different story.
Well, that's a great formula. And let's get to those kids because your wife is Brazilian. It's a very international. So just tell me about the kids and, what do you wish for them?
So interesting enough, ever since they were born, I only speak German with them. My wife only speaks Portuguese with them. So they grew up in New York, not speaking a word of English until they went to school, which was really funny. And then they came to school, and like me, but they were younger, but they didn't speak English, but they learned it in school, like this. And that I think was cool. Still, if you go to our dining table or dining table at night, it's like the language has just changed because I speak German with them, they speak German with me, then they speak Portuguese with their mom, I speak English with her. So it's super crazy. For us, it's totally normal, but when people come over, it's like this is so weird. And the girls speak better Portuguese than I do, and they speak better German than my wife does. So they're the ones that are like they're all set for life. They're
Kids,
good.
kids don't get to pick their parents, and yours are darn lucky, Robbie. That is so huge.
Yeah, that's just
Okay.
one thing. But I think in terms of, you asked me what I wish for them, and I I just want them to be confident. I want to be able to give them enough of a security where they can feel like they can go into what they love, to follow that. But I want them to also understand that they need to work and they need to earn their own money, and they need to. It's really important to me that they find their own way. I just see people who have money that where they don't need to work, and they don't really have that purpose. And from the people that I've seen, they're just not that happy. Like I think this combination of working on something that you really enjoy
Hmm.
and still having a balance where you can enjoy your life. That's the sweet spot to me. I think one without the other doesn't really do much. If you're just working, it's too much, and if you're just enjoying life, after a while, you don't really enjoy it anymore. So I think the balance is really important, and I hope that they can find that.
Yeah. Well, they have amazing role models for that. A few fun questions as a rapid fire wrap. So, you are purpose built to be a fashion designer, but if you weren't in your next life, what profession would you be, Robby?
Well, I would love to be an architect as well. I think that's something that I always thought was amazing. You really need to be very. Uh, I think you need certain skills that when was not my strength. Like maths was not really my strength. I was okay at math, but I was never that interested in it. And there's certain things that maybe in this life I wasn't made for. But I love the idea of, like you said, also like this idea of building beautiful structures for people to live in. So I could imagine that. Um, the idea, like the dream of being a chef, really interests me. The reality of it, I think maybe not. But this idea, like I love cooking. Like I love spending a Sunday having a plan, going to the market, buying the ingredients, putting on music, opening a bottle of wine, and really making a really nice meal for the family.
Yeah.
It's one of my happy places for sure. So I mean, keeping it at that is probably best because the reality of working in the kitchen all the time is not that romantic. But besides, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a lot. I mean, for me, the whole photography, the whole creative world is super interesting.
Nice. Okay, if you had a favorite food or cuisine, what is it?
Uh, it's Italian. It has to be Italian. I mean, it's so like everybody loves Italian, everybody loves Italy, but then you go to Italy and you're like, oh yeah, of course, because it's phenomenal. And then the food is the same. It's phenomenal. You get everything. You have amazing ingredients. You get everything from the beautiful meat in the north, and then you have the amazing pizza from Napoli, and you have the amazing pasta, and I mean, great salads. Like, I mean, if you are going to eat one food for the rest of your life, I think probably Italian is the way to go.
I love
How
it.
about you?
Oh,
What's your
I am all things Asian because I mean, like I'm like rice with everything. So I have to say I have to sway to the Asian foods for sure.
Yeah,
I have to
yeah.
say. Okay, last one. Any nicknames you can disclose for us?
Mike, for me,
Yeah.
I got a million. So the one is Ro Geiler. I was Ro Geiler since I think I was my teenage years. From Robert Geller, Ro Geiler. It's a one that I've always had. Popsy. My sister always called me Popsy since I was little because it's Robbie, Popsy, Popsy. So Popsy is like, but then now everybody in my family calls me Boba. Boba and Bobba because my first niece, who's now 23, when she was little, she couldn't say Robbie, she just said Boba. And so everybody, like it's really everyone's like, hey Boba, Boba, Boba. And people who don't know my family are like, who's Boba? Like, where does that come from? Boba. There's more. But that's yeah. I mean,
I love it.
Robbie's a nickname, so that's the weird one. Like, a German named Robbie is also kind of weird.
Yeah.
Seems very American or like Australian or something like that. Robbie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that you're German, but it's not the vibe. Like you know what I mean? You definitely defy the more staid German vibe.
Yes.
Okay. How about for our listeners, do you have a top takeaway from listening to yourself today?
I think just say yes. Like that's a lot of the way was like if I had an opportunity, if people come along, I was always like, yeah, let's try it. Not everything was always like maybe the perfect decision, but if you say yes, you're always going to find adventures. And if you look too protective and you say no, maybe you will avoid a mistake or two, but it's going to be super boring. So I think in my life, often, like almost always, with these opportunities, like now with Brag and Bone, cold. I live in Lisbon. They're in New York. You really want to get back into that world? Yeah, I want to try it. I want to try it. It's a new challenge and it's a cool brand. And like I've always, I've always kind of just said, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. And so I think that leads to adventure. That leads to excitement.
Yeah. It's so one of the many things that's inspiring for you about you. So one last question. What was it like for you to share your journey with us today?
Interesting. I came into this just very open and not really knowing what we didn't plan, like what we're going to talk about, just general like conversation about life. So I love that, and being able to tell my story is super nice for me because it reminds me of things that maybe I hadn't thought about for a while, and kind of also reminds me of how lucky I am to be where I am today. And you know, I'm not the most famous designer in the world, but I think probably one of the happiest. I think I've had a level of success where I can be proud of what I've achieved. I've had a balance to be with my family. It's allowed me to do basically everything that I've wanted. So um, super happy with my choices. And I I hope that the adventure continues in this way. You never know what the next thing might be. I'm hoping to stay with Rag and Bone for a while, but there's a lot of adventures ahead, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that your saying yes has gotten you to where you are and will open more doors for sure. And I am so inspired by all you stand for and how you're so in the zone, really personally and professionally. And you've got this killer combo. You have this work ethic and commitment and discipline with your just joie de vivre. Robbie, you're just so light, and there's this humble
Thank you.
self-assuredness, your creative sense and just your passion for the design. So thank you. And I think you're just helping us see how powerful it is to find your authentic voice and knowing how and when best to use it. And it's clearly served you and all around us. So I want to appreciate you, Robbie, and thank you for being part of the solution and helping all of us to be safe, seen, and heard, and our true and very, very best selves.
Amazing. I'm really happy that you invited me. It's been super nice. I mean, I love talking to you always, but to do it for this, it's even nicer.
Yeah, and we'll see you on the tennis court soon.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay,
Thank
folks.
you.
One final thought, and I have a quote from George Bernard Shaw. 2 things define you: your patience when you have nothing, and your attitude when you have everything. And that's a wrap, folks. I want to thank you for joining us. Please be part of the solution and kindly share this show. Amplify Robbie's voice. Reflect on your own top takeaways, and know I'm cheering for you to be who you are and say what needs to be said so that you and those around you have a shared reality essential to make life and work much, much better.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to stop.